Okay, looks like we're live here. Gonna refresh the stream. There we go. So, thank you for joining in tonight. I think tonight I am thinking some kind of a street scene with I don't know. I'm thinking some interaction between elements, you know. A couple characters, vehicles. So I'm just gonna mock out a few different ideas here. Let's block them in. And I'm gonna swap my foreground, background colors here. Get a little darker color here. I don't want to go too dark because I don't want to influence this too much up front, but just enough to be able to separate these shapes. Let's see here. Grab a little bit of a lighter color and work on this. These background elements here. Maybe tighten these up just a little bit so that as they recede in space, they have less real estate. Kind of like the idea of having reflections in the on the pavement down here. You know, some kind of a wet look to it. All right. I got the thumbnail up for this when I started this is the painting from last week, and hopefully I'm not confusing anybody with that. We may switch themes here depending on how the night goes, but the point of these streams on Wednesday night is to have basically an unplanned art time, you know. Let's do plenty of planned work. Nice to have this opportunity to do something a little more, not necessarily free form, but allow the exploration of different themes, you know, without needing to justify it with, you know, work or some related thing. Kind of like this idea of baskets on the heads here. We were talking about this the other day with the kids. Like, why is that common in some places? And just to be able to put all that weight on your frame rather than having it kind of lopsided. So carrying things on your head should be more of a thing here in the States. It'd be kind of cool if you were like in New York and everyone had stuff on their heads. Alright, so that's one idea over here. And then a separate idea here. And this is more just mental image. Maybe something I saw in my head. But I can't say I was particularly excited about it. It's just it's kind of an interesting idea in terms of I don't know, psychoanalyzing. Like, okay, where did that thought come from? What is this thing? But anyway. So this would be more of a kind of a side view on the street here. Get this vehicle parked here. And then someone walking across the street to get that spatial relationship worked out there. Alright, that's pretty loose. Start working in some more values here. Kind of just jumping between these two scenes as we feel like it. Careful that I'm not, I don't want to draw too much attention up here. This is really just the sky background, so I'm going to smooth that out. Get rid of a lot of that contrast that was up there. And I think we can do the same thing on this scene here. There's no real need for this to be, you know, this particularly heavy contrast there. And I'm betting that for the viewer at home, you are not yet really seeing this as two different scenes. So I know that I will have to do a little bit of work to convince you of that. Patience. I guess we're in a European city because these are on the left. This may take a minute for my PC to catch up on what's going on here. Didn't seem to like what I did there. Yeah, I'm not sure if I like that blue. We'll keep a little bit of it in there to get these color contrast pops, you know, but I'm gonna go in over top of it with this orange. I mean, that's, call it orange, but it's almost a desaturated kind of skin tone. But because I'm using it as an overlay layer, it's going to come through richer, which is why I tend to think of it that way, as a more saturated orange type color. Still kind of working out how I want to address the palette for this. You know, I was starting with these cool colors with these little pops of red in there. However, I do kind of like the idea of going with like a more monochromatic look on these. Just kind of working in the warms. And if we just keep working at it, then we keep working in that warm tone, and we've got that cool under base. Eventually it'll kind of take over to be warm, and we'll just have just here and there these little flecks of cool color coming through. I think it'll be nice. I think that. Excuse me. a little person walking around, like a kiddo walking with them. Brighten some of these things up so we get a driver in that vehicle. We have to bring that up a little bit. That might be too much there. So we have to go up and not sure if I want to put the this highlight in there. Catch the top of the vehicle. Let's just clean things up a little bit too, if we really need to. Might need to move that light up a little bit. Normally that would be kind of at the top there. I'm probably going to have to pull some reference. That would be the smart thing to do. So in this particular scene, I like this idea of like these little areas of mist, fog rising up in the background. But I don't, I don't want to go too heavy with it. I'll say that. I say that a lot, and then I do that exact thing. Like, go heavy with the things that I'm thinking should be subtle, but I bring it up because I'm conscious of it, conscious of the fact that I might get too carried away with an idea. Okay. Whoops, that's right. Not using that tool. I was using the smudge brush, and I went to go switch my colors, but no need to do that when you're smudging, unless you are doing the finger painting option up there, which is a pretty awesome way to work, but not actually what I was intending to do. Alright, so I kind of want to show this. These lights, Lena's lighting up this fog here. And so I haven't really got the clear break between these scenes, but you know, I'm kind of looking at this thing over here on the left is one image, and then here in the center is another. I actually kind of like how they relate, you know, like they're kind of abstractly connected. Do I want this yellow here on these little guys? Should probably actually, excuse me, map that out and make sure that the distances half decent. Kind of just eyeballing the perspective there. Not too worried about it. Hmm. Hmm. It's not offering a whole lot of insight into what I'm thinking. Just a lot of hums. But if it offers any insight, that would be... I'm trying to figure out what I'm thinking with this. Kind of like just letting it go. Not be too controlled about these things. I'm just working in these little strokes in perspective, or at least in the semblance of perspective. If you're following from the beginning, then you know that there really is no solid setup to this scene. We're just kind of letting it unfold. And so, as long as we don't do anything that's going to completely offend the viewer in terms of gross perspective errors or whatever, we have a little bit of freedom to kind of play with this and figure it out. Imply some things. Somehow ended up on the bottom layer there. Actually, I think we'll nix this, move it down here, give this more of a curvature to it. I like the idea that the scene doesn't have to be perfectly linear. You can curve and give this an arc like that, right? Rather than straight, like so. So everyone play with that a little bit. I'm mixing in a little bit of a color complement there. There's a little, just a tiny bit of blue in that white to make those lights pop a little more. Pop, pop, pop. Yeah, I don't know how intense I want to go with that red. Don't want it to be overpowering. And we'll bring those back just a little bit. Bring this color down a little bit. Hey, just checking the chat here. I see Todd Biggins dropped in for a little bit. Hey, Todd. Said unfortunately can't stay to watch, but wanted to drop in and say, hey, keep on making amazing art, my friend. Thanks, Todd. That's very encouraging. Appreciate it. Just at days like today, I wasn't really gonna get into this, but man, today was a bit of a slog with work and the kids and so forth. Kids are awesome, just a lot, a lot of require a lot of energy, and if you haven't noticed, I am spent at this point. So I appreciate the encouragement. It's well timed. And I don't want to go too too much on these vehicles. It's not really about that necessarily. However, I do think they would catch a little bit of light off of this, especially if they're wet. Talking about egregious perspective sins for which we cannot be forgiven. I have to correct a couple of those. Definitely, I think getting to that point with this foreground vehicle here. Ooh, let's see. Do we want a dark smoke coming off of these? Or a light smoke coming off of these? Well, I think I prefer light. And we can soften those up a bit. And they actually don't need to be that significant either. In terms of just the space on the canvas could be toned down quite a bit. Trying to make a relationship between this edge, this little shape here, and this shape here. And it may require a little bit of cleanup. As I typically say, we'll get to that. All in good time. And this is the part where all the smart people ask, but will we though? Will we get to that, Eric? Okay. Getting a little crazy here. So tone these back. Yeah. Just go to the eraser, which is pretty sharp. And we'll bring some of these in. And what I'm looking to do there, if it doesn't make any sense, is that you've got this edge here, and then you got this edge here. You kind of want to make them look like they're traveling like this, right? However, I also want to cut off the edge at the right spot in order to make this appear to be. Well, let me grab a dark color so you can see what I'm talking about here. Edge of the building, like that. Even though it's all lost, right? So pin that and grab that same kind of color, and then it all kind of gets blended together and disappears, right? But that's the whole point, is you want those two edges, these two shapes, to inform each other. Like, the viewer should be able to recognize that those are related. And for me, it's not quite reading yet. Maybe if I squint a little bit, I get it. What am I doing? Getting lost in the weeds over there. It's like the story of this whole live stream. Wednesday night, lost in the weeds night. That's okay, though. And that's not just something I'm telling myself. I keep saying this. That's the point of these nights, is to allow yourself to explore, do something that's not necessarily tried and true or best practice, and just see where it takes you. And if nothing else, it's just kind of freeing to do it once a week. You know? Then you can get back to all that contrived artwork, you know, to put a negative spin on it, but planned stuff, you know. That's fine. When you plan things, you gotta know where you're going, where you hope to end up, and that is a good thing if you want to end up somewhere. But if you just kind of want to take a Sunday cruise, artistically speaking, just enjoy it. That's different. I guess that's what they used to call a Sunday paper, or Sunday painter. So I read this book by Thomas Buechner. It's called Secrets of a Sunday Painter. And I didn't really realize this because, you know, I was never really in the fine art world. I always did concept art. But apparently it's kind of a derogatory remark towards a painter to call them a Sunday painter. Like they're not can't be taken seriously as a gallery ready person or whatever, which I think is terrible, because, you know, looking at the guy's work, like, he was very knowledgeable, very what's the word? He could execute on his ideas. Did some very nice work. But apparently when he went to publish the book, he was kind of in the circles with other artists who were a little more had more street cred than he did, a little more well known. And so the publisher wanted to kind of dial it back a little bit. This is my understanding, at least. That's what I've been told from others in his circles. They wanted to dial it back and kind of minimize his claim of being a real deal painter. So they named the book Secrets of a Sunday Painter. I don't know what the original intended title was, but it's kind of an obscure book, but it's very good in terms of technical approach. Like he just lays it all out, you know, like this is how he makes an image in oil, you know, and also not too rigid either. And he had another book as well, that was, How I Paint Secrets of a Sunday Painter, that's the one. And then the other book was Seeing a Life. That was his other one. And that was pretty insightful too. The whole point of that book was like to go through an artist's body of work and you kind of get an idea for that person in the work. And so he goes through a little bit of his own history and how he developed as an artist, and then you see it kind of visually. It's a really pretty interesting concept. You know, and I think I've never really been much of a collector, but I think that's kind of the understanding on that side of the art world is, you know, you're interested in how somebody thinks and how they're progressing and how the progression of thought in a visual format. It's almost like, you know, following your your favorite author or whatever, or even if they're not your favorite, it's just interesting to see the thought progress and change over time, And painting, of course, is just another way of communicating thought, just visually. It's a language that's much more, I think, much more quickly and easily interpreted. Debating how much I really want to sort this character out. I kind of like how loose and gestural all that is. And I don't want to kill it. I have them hold hands or something. Little child in the sea. Dial that head back a little bit. Crazy big head, kid. It happens. No shame in that. Okay, I think I need to bring this all together. Show this area passing through behind the character, giving that a nice solid read through it, so that way the character pops forward. So I think I want this arm, so the shoulders here, comes up and over. So it doesn't need to be like straight out, if you're thinking about the anatomy. In regard to, so like, how to describe this. If you're looking at this character, let's see, 1 second here, thinking. Right, so if you're looking at this character from behind, and that is that shoulder, straight out to the side like this, it doesn't have to be such a linear silhouette. You can bring it forward in space. And maybe if we just bring that color down a little bit in value, then we can get it to read more as a form change there. So somehow this reminds me of a illustration or request I got. I never got to do it because the I mean, I suppose I still can, but the person who commissioned it passed away very shortly after bringing it up, and it's kind of stuck with me because he was an elderly guy and he wanted to capture some of these things, stories that he remembered that he thought were worth remembering. And anyway, one of them, he was telling me it was about his mother, and she was walking home. She was a nurse, walking home in the rain, and she worked the night shift, so it was late and dark, wet, and all that. And she came upon this scene of a couple guys trying to pull a girl into a car, and so she attacked them with the only thing she had, and that was her shoe. She had high heels on, and apparently she beat off these guys, and they jumped in the car, ran off, and then they sued her, took her to court for assault with a deadly weapon. Pretty hilarious. But, interesting story, interesting times, and of course, his mom being the hero of that story was cool. I'm gonna back up here. I don't like what I did with that light. I'm trying to change the perspective a little bit on this car, but that didn't work. I just tried to do it. Jump back ahead, jump back. And he had a bunch of stories like that. It was a real interesting guy. He was the one, if you look on my art station, there's an image called To Be Remembered, and he commissioned that one. And that's also a pretty interesting story. Actually, even just the way that the whole scenario worked out. He had me pick him up. He couldn't drive, so I had to drive him where we were going. And he wasn't giving me very much information. Took me to this graveyard, and we got out of the vehicle, and he told me, well, he didn't say anything. He just started kind of walking around and looking, and I said, hey, can I help you find, and what are we looking for? He said, I'm looking for a stone. Which, in a graveyard, there's kind of a lot of those, so it took me a second, I was like, are you talking about a cut stone, or like a natural stone, and I said, no, it's a natural stone, and we're walking around, and we find this, it was massive. It's like a monolith. Literally like a giant single piece of stone, just a big slab, and it was like set up on its side, and that was one of the grave markers. And he told me this story about this guy who he was a poor guy, and his wife passed away, and he couldn't afford to give her a proper burial or anything like that. So he made an agreement with a local farmer. He would work for him for a couple of weeks, and was able to use his horse and chain. He went down to the river and pulled up this big slab of river stone, creek stone, and well, actually it would have been a river, not a creek, and set that as the marker. Just set it straight up, you know, coming right out of the ground. You'll see it in the image if you have a look at it. But the marker didn't have any. There's no writing on it or anything like that. It's just this big stone coming out of the ground. And to see it in the graveyard with the other stones, like, it just, you see it and it just is begging for an explanation or a story, or, you know, like, you could just, it just has that nature to it, you know. And I just thought that was really interesting, and I was contemplating, I mean, not just interesting, it was really compelling story, you know, but I was contemplating this at the same time, that, like, it's incredibly difficult to do any kind of memorial art, because the person commissioning it, or the person doing it, who remembers the one being memorialized, you know, they have all these emotions and connections associated with it that are they're inherent, right? They're built into the creator and built into the viewer, you know, the creator's view, right? So kind of unable to see the artwork as an outsider, as a bystander, and you can communicate a concept, but you can't pack it full of the feeling and the memories and all that stuff that people have, you know. So it's incredibly difficult to accomplish that type of work for memorials. You know, you see these kind of memorials, and you don't know who the person is. That, you know, that it memorializes. So it seems to me that the appropriate way to address that is to abstract, you know, the concept, so that someone can put themselves into the story, or into the emotional impact of it. Without it necessarily needing to be, you know, an associated, like a memory that you have. Right? And that is, I think it's an incredibly hard thing to do as someone who wants to memorialize a person, a specific person, to have it done in an abstract way, because then it doesn't feel like it's that person. But it seems to me that that's the way to effectively communicate that with other people. And that's the whole point of a memorial, is to share it with people who didn't know, weren't there, you know, didn't know that person. And so that's quite a rabbit trail. Sorry about that. But I do think it's a valuable thing to consider, that that it's one of these areas in art that, like, it's an important part of what we do, and it's easy to do it in a way that just isn't effective. Like the default approach doesn't seem to actually capture anybody, right? And so I thought that was worthy of giving some consideration and at least formulating some opinion and going after it. I'll leave that there. I'm not trying to be heavy tonight, just this scene reminded me of that those interactions that I had, and those were the stories that he wanted to tell, you know. I don't know what I ended up doing over here. It's kind of funny. You got me monologuing. All right. Bring in a little more overlay here. Bump up some of these colors. Look at that. Warmed up that scene just like that. Probably am not going to stick with that though. I'll grab my smudge brush here. Maybe we'll switch this to cool color. We'll see. We're allowed to do that. We can do whatever we want. We are the masters of our own destiny. It's funny, my kids were playing today, and my daughter, she's 6 years old, and she is a crazy maker. Like, she just gets an idea and then she just goes and makes it, and it's like super awesome. Anyway, she was excited about snowmen, and she was going to go out and do some snowmen, and she was saying, Dad, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to make a snowman that's going to reach to the sky. And my son, who's he's 8, he goes, you can't do that. That's, you know the Tower of Babel, why people are speaking different languages? Because they tried to build that tower up to the sky. You're gonna mess things up. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that won't happen. I don't think her ambition to build a giant snowman is gonna bring the wrath of heaven and confound the speech of. Anyway, kids, love them. Get a kick out of it. Alright, bring that out, bring it back in, out, and yeah, so I think we'll erase in here. And we'll just kind of follow whatever lines we want to here. Build those snowmen too high. Temper your ambitions. After all, remember what happened last time. What is this guy doing? What has he done? Chill out, Eric. You're putting all these little scribbly lines in there. You get this sense of more sense of space here. It's funny when you think about this. It's just light and dark, in and out, you know what I mean? It's like a little lighter, a little darker, a little bluer, a little redder. Or more red, I suppose, if I'm going to be proper. But all of that adds up to believing there's something there and enjoying it. It's weird. You know, how does that even happen? It's the magic of art. We're going to blend those. Yeah, we'll do that. But just like that. Maybe grab some of this. Reference that. You know, it's up here. We're going to reference it down here, too. Why not? We're the masters of our own destiny. As long as we're, you know, careful not to reach too high. Playing with this idea. You know, I was looking at the scene and thinking that so much of it was, you know, vertical with these lines. It might be nice to bring in some of these elements coming in, you know, horizontally. But I don't know. I don't know if I like it or not. I feel like this is a bit, it can be a bit overdone. So. Just go control click that, so I'll select the layer and then just mask it with itself. And so what that does is it brings all the edges in tighter. Alright, I'm going to zoom out now. See if I can just kind of refresh my take on this. And just work on a really large scale here. And we'll do overlay. Though I don't know that overlay is really the answer. Because I don't really want to intensify the saturation, I just want to work with the light and dark value, as they say. Okay, I'm going to zoom back in because you definitely cannot see anything that I am doing here. So we'll zoom right back in. And I'll just step back a little bit. That might work better. And I don't want this to be, I don't want this to quite get to black. I don't want it to be too dark. But I do want to see if we can push the areas of interest. You know, we've lowered the contrast back there. We can increase it up here. That is one of the interesting light effects on a rainy day, the overcast, and so you'll get more diffuse light because the clouds are bouncing the light around before it hits the ground, rather than in direct sunlight. And by indirect, I mean direct sunlight. You would get a really strong, crisp cast, crisp shadows and everything. Each of these steps, you know, I'm asking myself, do you really want to do that? I really want to make that part more saturated or darker, higher contrast. You know, thinking about these things as you go. And then with these blocked in the overlay layer, you know, with a soft round brush, we can come back in with the smudge brush, which has a nice hard edge for us on this. Let me pull that up, and that will let us tighten up one of these edges here, bring in just a little bit of texture. So these aren't these perfect airbrushed edges. We don't want that, at least not in this case. I'm just going to come in with a solid color here. I'll just start softening some of these things up. Get them to push back into the background there. May have to come back in with this smudge on that. That's getting too, I don't know. Trying to like define something there. Get too analytical. I think it just needs to be simpler. Simplify. That might be too simple. Try a little dark cloud on this one. Smart. Dark smoke. What did I just call that? Smark? You got some dark smark coming out of that building there, buddy. We want to look into that. I don't think buildings are supposed to have dark smark. go ahead and push those back a little bit. Took a step back, stepped on my stool there. Wasn't too happy about that. Let's see. Design that shape a little more. Yeah. Let's see. Grab that smudge brush. And push some of these around a little more. I think this is the part in here that I don't really care for. I don't really care for how light it's making this area in that overlay. Oh, okay. This might be the place to stop. Might be. Of course, we always do color balance. Maybe some curves. We set that to luminosity, we can kind of see, is that what we're enjoying about that change? Is it everything together? Is it just the brightness? Is the color what's making it work? I don't want to I don't want to be drawn to it just because the contrast is increased. So that is kind of interesting. I think I like, frankly, just that saturation change, and then let's try the luminosity. Maybe go a little bit lower. Yeah, I like what that's doing with the, the bright colors and everything. We'll do one more, and then we'll knock it back in the center, background areas there. And since this mask, with just a white mask, it's not really doing anything. You can just hold shift and click to remove the mask. Okay, I'm just checking the chat here. It's from Will. It says, "Hey Eric, how's it going with the painting?" Thanks, Will. It's going all right. This has actually been a little bit of a stress reliever today. I was saying a little bit earlier that I don't know. I was kind of ready for today to be done, and working on this and having no real necessity to have it land somewhere has been refreshing. It's nice to just kind of jump into it and not worry too much about delivering, and it's been a nice process. Yeah. Thanks for joining in, by the way. I really appreciate everyone who takes the time to come in and check it out. I hope that you get the same kind of value out of it that I do putting into it. I mean, I enjoy just having this time to produce some unnecessary art, right? And I think it's cool that you guys enjoying. Cool and humbling, right? Like, I don't feel like anyone has to come along for this ride, you know. And so I really appreciate it. It's really nice. I'm going to bring in a few sharper lines here, and we'll see if that's gonna be a net positive or not. Alright, so with these, I'm just going to go fill it with black. Crazy talk. I'm going to lock that layer, and then I'm going to grab their surrounding tones and feather it in. That way I can kind of see everything that I've got to work with. And you can make a decision about what's the color that makes that transition. That's the whole point of what I'm doing with these, is trying to get these sharper transition points. Everything's so soft, right? Vary up the edges a little bit. I do think that the yellows have gotten off on these lights, which kind of bothers me a little bit. But I think I can just do that, address that with the blend if option. So I'll feather these in like this. Brighter towards the core. And then we'll shift that up. Like so. Alright. So now we'll double click that and do blend if here, underlying layer is above this certain value here. So we're going to find that sweet spot. Something like that. Yeah, I think the color that's bothering me is right in between there. Yeah, it's that kind of ochre color there. And I think we don't have to go 100% on that. We'll do one more. I'll grab this color. I'll grab a textural brush here. This guy, texture drag. And we'll bring in some of these reflections. I suppose that car doesn't need to be black, does it? Do I really feel like putting in the work to change that? That is the question. Maybe grab some of that sky color. Put it on the window there. Might be a little heavy-handed there. Car here, just for kicks. I think we need to get rid of the front of that car. The question is, how much we need to get rid of? This is why you should pay attention in perspective class. Don't learn it from me. Be smart, kids. Choose your teachers wisely. Don't like that much. Do like that green though. That's kind of nice. And in there. I don't even know why I did that. Alright, let's go curves on that. Shift the hue on it. Just try some different things. kind of like it when it was yellow like that. Of course, I'd have to change the lights. Just makes it a little more monochromatic. Of course, we could go red, because that wouldn't be the least bit pretentious. I don't know. Looks like we got a stray mark up top there. It's kind of interesting. Makes for an interesting handle. Yeah, you can't really move that around without needing to adjust the perspective on it. I just think that it is too, it's too high. Like the perspective does not need to be that extreme. Yeah, I don't think that's really working. I think it just kind of messes with the scene. Like, I do want something there, but messes with the composition, the spacing of these vehicles too. I'm going to go at it again. Because we are just gluttons for punishment, I guess. Let's get this and go a little bit grayer with it there. Get this to blend in. surrounding. I think I'll just call it there instead of fiddling with that too much. All right, yeah, I think we'll call that good there. So, of course, there's more we can do, different directions you can take it, but I think it's pretty clear that I've kind of hit that zone out point, and I think we've done enough. All right, so if you were painting along at a project that you were working on, as always, I think that's a great way to work and learn, is to have some sort of inspiration or something to follow along with, but to be doing your own thing, to be figuring it out kind of kinesthetically, that you're working out these ideas on the canvas and not just in your head. Right? So yeah, I hope that you had a project that you were working on tonight, and that you got some headway on that, and I hope that you enjoyed the process and maybe learned something. And yeah, thank you for joining, and we'll be back here next week. 9 o'clock Wednesday night. So thank you for joining, and have a great night.